ADHD is not a genetic problem. It's purely a nutritional problem, and I can prove it. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. Low attention and hyperactivity. Let me just quickly run through how they diagnose people with ADHD. Makes mistakes frequently, does not pay attention to detail, does not listen when spoken to directly, doesn't follow through and complete things, cannot play quietly, problem organizing, losing things, often fidgets, too much energy, talks too much. Most of these are normal childhood behavior. And all of these can be exaggerated when the child is eating poorly. The two medications that are used for this condition, Adderall and Ritalin, are basically a cash cow for big pharma. The definition of ADHD has been greatly expanded. They made it more diagnosable to put more people on medication. There's no objective testing that can be done. It's all subjective. And the way that they actually came up with this disorder is they got a bunch of psychiatrists in a room and they all voted on it. And that's how it became what it is. Talk about a severe lack of science. The drug companies do most of the studies. They create the pro-ADHD groups and organizations that support more diagnosis and more treatment. And by the way, the drug Adderall, which affects dopamine, is like one molecule off from crystal meth. But the problem is recently there was a whole meta-analysis that came out that showed that the effects of this drug in a double-blinded study after 36 months showed that any benefit from Adderall faded to zero, going back to the same symptoms they started with. Of course, if you put anyone on a drug like that, their performance is going to increase for a while until the drug wears off. But the problem is, what about the side effects, right? There's a lot of side effects. Aggressive behavior, dulls the mood. Why? Because it affects their neurotransmitters artificially. Now, I did look at what it said in Wikipedia about this condition as far as the cause, and there's a lot of data on genetics. And I looked at the actual genes that are supposed to be causing ADHD. They gave this impression that, it's genetic and you really can't do anything, so you might as well just take the medication and see if that can help. But lifestyle changes, food, deficiencies, stress, those are the things that cause these genes to act in a certain way. There is some known things about this condition. We do know that there's some metabolic problem with the prefrontal cortex of the brain. There are some metabolic changes, and I'm talking about the way that the brain metabolizes fuel. And this makes a lot of sense because if you start to starve the fuel of any part of the brain, it can start to overcompensate, and you can start having symptoms, lack of attention, hyperactivity. Now, on top of that, if you add other things like food dyes, artificial sweeteners, sugar, hidden sugar like starch, monosodium glutamate, all the things in junk food have a huge influence on someone's behavior. I guarantee you right now, if I ate these Pop-Tarts for breakfast, my behavior would be completely inappropriate. I would not be able to think properly, especially if I was going to school. It's going to affect my brain. So we have really two things going on. We have all the additives. Then we also have things that are missing over here that I'm going to talk about next. If we just take dopamine, for example, and we want to increase dopamine, which can help focus, and it can also help a person feel calm. And we look at the precursor, the amino acid L-tyrosine that turns in the dopamine. And even when I was in practice, I would give certain people who had this condition L-tyrosine, and they would do much better just from giving them this one amino acid. But I wouldn't even recommend taking that amino acid. Instead, I would consume the food that is high in L-tyrosine: meat, fish, eggs, cheese. And so just think about how many children don't consume meat, fish, eggs, or cheese. They're consuming more carbohydrates. They're consuming more junk foods. In fact, in a teenager, it's 63% of their calories is composed of junk food, not high quality protein. There was an interesting meta-analysis done in 2021. Broad spectrum micronutrients, especially B6, zinc, magnesium, significantly decrease ADHD symptoms. And here's another double-blinded study showing decreased hyperactivity and aggressiveness just by taking two things, magnesium and B6. Also, adding omega-3 fatty acids from fish oils gave a moderate improvement in inattention and, guess what, without any side effects. And hands down, the most overlooked nutrient, especially in psychiatric conditions, is vitamin B1, the natural version of B1, L-theanine, and it's from garlic. But B1 enables the brain to utilize fuel, especially glucose. If a child is consuming a lot of glucose in the form of refined carbohydrates and sugars like they are, what's going to happen is their brain, especially the frontal part that they need to focus and feel calm, it's not going to get fuel because the refined carbs are depleting vitamin B1. B1 is something your body needs to make acetylcholine, a very important neurotransmitter in cognitive function. I really believe, based on all of the evidence, that ADHD is a glucose metabolic dysfunction where that child has consumed way too many carbohydrates for way too long, depleting the micronutrients, creating these behavioral changes. I mean, if we just take one of these micronutrients, vitamin B1, and we create a deficiency with that one single nutrient, that'll mimic brain fog, fatigue, irritability, feeling nervous, memory problems, and a very unstable mood. So I think B1 is crucial in anyone who has ADHD because that's going to give the neurons a kickstart. But at the same time, that child, that teenager, an adult needs to change the diet to a low-carb diet so their bodies can run on ketones. And ketones are going to bypass the damage they have in the neurons. So in other words, the nerve cells are finally going to get fuel, and that child, teenager, or adult is going to feel calm, and they're going to start to expand their ability to have attention on something. Brain inflammation is going to go down. Hyperactivity is going to go away. ADHD is a diet problem. It's a nutritional deficiency problem. It is not a genetic problem. It can be easily handled if you change that diet. And you don't even need to get into the genetics. All you have to do is correct the diet, give the person the nutrition to create the control over those genes if there's potentially any genes really involved. So if you have any questions on the version of the ketogenic diet that you need to be on or your child needs to be on, I will put that link down below. And of course, you need to get rid of the junk food that has all the chemicals and the colorings, preservatives, and the refined carbohydrates for sure. So go ahead and try this and then come back to this video and report in the comments on how much better your child or yourself is doing. Hey, before you leave, I just wanted to give you a little quick history on some of the books that I wrote. This was one of the first books. It's called Dr. Berg Body Shapes. It was my attempt at writing about body types. What was very interesting about this book is I actually did all the images myself. Don't ask me why. They look actually not quite as professional as some of the images that I have in the new book. But anyway, this is my first attempt right here called Dr. Berg's Body Shape Diets. And then I wrote a book more extensive called The 7 Principles of Fat Burning. I don't even have a copy anymore, actually, because it's outdated. The next book, I put about 1,000 hours into this one right here called The New Body Type Guide. Major updates on the body types. I put a lot of energy into this. It has professional images, graphics, all sorts of things. Now, the problem with this book is it doesn't really describe what this is really about. Body types are only a small portion of what's in this book. And that's why I changed the name to the Healthy Keto Plan, okay? If you happen to have this book, you don't really need this book because there's some only very, very minor updates. But if you don't have this, you need to get this one right here. This book goes into every single detail that you would ever want to know about. It goes into the 7 principles of fat burning. It goes into hormones, the body types, the basic keto plan. It goes into intermittent fasting. I talk about the 10 fat burning triggers and blockers and fat burning strategies with a lot of details in every single chapter. I go into body issues that interfere with losing weight. There's very few people that just have a weight problem. They have a lot of body issues, whether it's sleeping problems, stress problems, inflammation, menopause. I cover that extensively in this book. Then I talk about how to get rid of stress, and I show you a technique. Then I get into exercising. And then I have a lot of really good recipes in this book as well. So this is a good reference guide. On my website, if you get this book, you get this one free. It's called Healthy Keto Intermittent Fasting. This is the shortcut, quick guide to this book. And the reason I created this book is to have you, within 45 minutes, learn how to do keto, okay, in intermittent fasting, exactly what you need to do. Then you can fill in the blanks with this book right here. So right now I'm doing a special. If you get this book, you get this one totally free, or you can go to Amazon and get these individually. So I just want to clarify the difference between this book and this updated one right here. If you don't have this, you need to get this right here. That way you can get the exact correct information to do it healthily.